this is China's revenge on Western capitalism.
You want to go through the story here?
Okay, so there's a couple layers here. At the base layer, there are these videos that have been on TikTok for...
Shelley's baking a cake of China analysis. Watch this.
Okay. So on the base layer is this... Now I'm just like, what? Anyway, so the cake is there are these videos of Chinese factory, like manufacturers on TikTok saying that they are... manufacturing for Nike or Lululemon or these expensive brands, but they can make the same, athletic wear or shoes or, Hermes bags or whatever for a fraction of the cost. And sometimes they claim to be the actual manufacturer that does Nike, right? And they'll just sell direct to consumer the same product without the label for a fraction of the price. And sometimes they claim that they can just make the same quality item. Like the Hermes bag is a guy saying that, his factory in China uses all the same materials that Hermes does, and he can sell you a bag for $1,400 instead of, $12,000 or $38,000 or whatever that an Hermes bag costs. So these videos were around before this latest round of tariffs. But now they've, in the last week, gotten a huge spike and more people are seeing them on TikTok. And then there are also these other videos that take like clips of all these videos and say, oh, China's the world's factory. We make all the world's luxury goods. We make all of these products. Like America can't survive without us. There's that kind of message that's built on top of these like manufacturers who are probably just trying to sell their, by the way, completely counterfeit and knockoff goods. Like, no way are these are not real Hermes bags. They are not real Gucci bags or, Nike shoes or whatever.
It's similar to with like look at this MAGA hat that's made in China.
Yeah.
But those are cheap Chinese knockoffs.
They're Chinese knockoffs. And they try to claim that like, all of these things are made in China. But actually Hermes makes all of their bags in France. They have a workshop,
not a cheap Chinese factory.
Well, because they do everything by hand and it takes somebody like 20 hours to make one bag, which I guarantee is not happening in the Chinese factory because there's no way that they...
Yeah, you can use the same materials, but if you're not putting the same effort and skilled labor into it.
They're literally hand saddle stitching every bag.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is like the psychological warfare component, right? Where it's like, well, China's the world factory. You can't get along without us. We make all of these luxury goods at insane markups. And then the luxury goods companies like put these insane markups on and sell them back to you. So who's the real villain in the story, right? Is it Western companies that are doing this to you? And then there are other videos who take this and like actually make that argument that like, this is China standing up to Western capitalism.
It gets shared on X.
Yes, exploited Chinese labor, or, America doesn't need a tariff war. America needs a revolution. That's literally what one of the guys in one of these videos says.
What the part they leave out is that the reason that so many American manufacturers set up in China using cheap labor is because the CCP said, come on over to China. We'll work with you to exploit the Chinese people for cheap labor so that you can make money.
Well, also, it's not just the cheap labor. We did this whole episode about it, right? Where it's like the entire state-run economy and their industrial policy is set up to advantage Chinese manufacturers.
Heavily subsidized. But if you're concerned about low-wage workers being taken advantage of, like, it was the CCP that set up the entire system to create low-paid workers who could be taken advantage of. It's the CCP who created an environment where those laborers are often people from the countryside who legally can't be residents of the city in which they're employed, so they have to live as second-class citizens in their own country and often can't even bring their kids to live with them, so the kids have to stay in the countryside with their grandparents. And because of the hukou system. And this is how deeply, deeply exploited these hundreds of millions of Chinese factory workers are. And it's because of the system the CCP set up. And then U.S. companies are like, oh, I can save money by doing this.
And the funny thing is, like, part of the propaganda campaign has been like showing like these AI videos of like Americans in crappy factories.
Yeah, it's
and
like a
why would
sad,
Americans
It was a
do this?
sad, overweight American guy sitting in front of a sewing machine, you know.
And it's
or
like,
whatever.
well, I mean, like the premise of this propaganda is Americans don't want to do and work in the horrible conditions that Chinese people are in.
Yeah, it's
like,
kind of
kinda
weird.
like a cell phone.
Well, no, it's kind of a weird moral superiority thing about how like Chinese people are tougher, right? Like Americans are weak.
They can't handle slave labor.
Yeah, basically. Actually, I saw like a video that tried to combat that by showing
actual American manufacturing.
Yeah.
And it's quite skilled.
Yeah, so but this whole thing is like the psychological warfare, right? About how trying to turn the anger about the tariffs, instead of being like, okay, here's what the CCP has done to exploit the system for decades, that now the U.S. is saying, okay, no more, we're going to try to even the playing field with these tariffs. Now they're turning it so that, okay, who are the real villains here? Trump, who's a hypocrite for getting his stuff made in China, even as he's putting these tariffs on, even though his stuff, like you mentioned, Chris,
it's made
in America. And then you have like, oh, so it's Trump. And then it's also these Western companies that are exploiting Chinese labor and marking up these products to sell to you, and to make you feel ripped off, right? Like to make you feel ripped off. And the people are feeling that way. You see this reaction where people are saying, like, I feel sick that, Gucci is making all their stuff in China and it's so cheap to make, and like I'm paying so much money for it, et cetera. And then they're also saying, like, it's not just the Western companies, now it's America as a whole. That is the problem with this trade war. America needs a revolution.
I wonder how effective this is going to be, because I feel like there's definitely a population in the U.S. that is very anti-American, that we're the bad guys. But it seems like there is now a large and vocal, like really like rah America contingent in the U.S. that I don't know if this will work.
Well, it will work on some people because I think the whole idea that, sorry, now I had a brain fart.
I was talking about how some people don't like the U.S. in the U.S. and some people in the U.S. like the U.S.
Yeah, but I think like it'll work because they're not just talking about how the U.S. is the bad guy, but like it's kind of like how they're trying to make it about the individual people, right? Like how they're like, oh, well, you're getting ripped off by these Western companies. So I think that's the emotional hook. That's actually going to work for people. Just like the propaganda videos where they're showing like American small business owners who are like, I'm going to go bankrupt because I make this children's toy and I can only get it manufactured in China. And, kind of like these like stories that then they're like, okay, see, the American, the small guy is getting hurt by this. Right?
And the propaganda groundwork has already been laid. Like the whole idea of like capitalism being evil and exploitative.
Yeah, the whole like China's clapping back at Western capitalism video was made by this Australian woman.
Thank you for watching this clip. I know you want to see more of me, Shelley, and Matt's mustache, so now it's time to watch our full hour-long podcast. It's available only for subscribers on our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. So check it out, join the fun, and support what we do at the same time. The link is below.